I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. It is now being revealed that Donald Trump had taken out approximately $19.8 million in loans from a company in South Korea with deep-seated ties to North Korea, and that Donald Trump failed to disclose this loan on his statements of financial disclosures that were made during his presidency. And we are learning about this through a report by Forbes, which obtained these records based on the current civil action that is being pursued by the New York Attorney General's office against Donald Trump. The company in question is called Daewoo, spelled Daewoo, and it was the only company that was permitted to do business in North Korea during the mid-1990s. Now, the relationship between Donald Trump and the felon organization known as the Trump Organization and Daewoo span back approximately 25 years. They apparently did some development work together in New York City around the United Nations approximately 25 years ago or so as well, and additionally did business in South Korea where approximately 6 properties that were being developed by Daewoo apparently utilized the Trump name in some form or manner. It is being reported by Forbes. Now, this $19.8 million loan, as I mentioned at the outset of this video, that was taken by Donald Trump, continued to have the balance of $19.8 million from really 2011 to 2016, and it was not paid down at all. Shortly after Donald Trump assumed responsibilities of his office when he was the president in 2016. He then paid that down to approximately $4 million by 2017, and then the debt was fully resolved in 2017, although it is unclear who paid to satisfy the remaining $4.5 million or so of debt that was owed to the Daewoo company in South Korea. Now, Alan Weisselberg had stated during Trump's run for office, when certain very limited financial disclosures were made, that Donald Trump had not had any outstanding debt with foreign corporations or foreign entities. Alan Weisselberg, like the Trump Organization, are both felons. Alan Weisselberg pleading guilty recently to 11 felony counts, and the Trump Organization being found guilty before a Manhattan jury on 17 felony counts. And of course, these felons do what felons do, which is lie apparently on their financial disclosure statements or materially omit this information. And one of the interesting things in the Forbes report is that they say that this omission may not technically be illegal under the federal disclosure requirements, which actually don't require presidents or people running for office to disclose all that much, which should absolutely 100% be changed. But aside from that, it's interesting that these documents come from the New York Attorney General's office, and this part was not covered in any of the reporting that I had seen. One of the things that was mentioned in the Forbes article and mentioned elsewhere is that the reason that Donald Trump took out this $19.8 million, this loan from Daewoo, was part of a licensing sharing arrangement where Donald Trump, in return for the loan, would share revenue that flowed from the licensing agreement that he had entered into with the Daewoo Corporation. And so, having litigated in my career before the MeidasTouch network big Ponzi scheme cases, I was a litigator for the Security and Exchange Commission at that time, and I still think it is to this date, one of the largest Ponzi schemes in the history of California. I was the counsel for the receiver, and in my other work that I do, when I look at that $19.8 million loan, when I see that was turned over by the New York Attorney General's office, it is very suspicious to me, because what it really seems like is a collusive tax avoidance scheme here. And I'm giving you my opinion. I can't say that for a fact, but a loan would not be taxed as income. And so if this organization, if Daewoo paid Donald Trump $19.8 million, and the Trump organization realized $19.8 million in income in all likelihood. And again, I'm not a CPA, but I will tell you, based on what I've seen in my cases, the $19.8 million would likely be taxable income. But if it's framed as a loan and the loan really doesn't have a maturity date, or it's just set forth in a very vague manner, the $19.8 million is a way to get around an actual payment to the Trump organization of $19.8 million that could be taxable. And one of the things to consider as well is not only would the $19.8 million loan not be taxable, but it is likely, and I haven't reviewed Donald Trump's tax returns, although the House Ways and Means Committee now has it, that $19.8 million loan is probably a deduction that Donald Trump took as well to try to zero out his taxable income for the various years, and basically had this non-arm's length collusive agreement with this Daewoo company that itself has links to the North Korean regime to try to keep this loan basically from out having a maturity date that Trump would never actually have to pay it back. But then when he became president, he realized he had to pay it back because there would be more scrutiny on that arrangement that he previously had. The ultimate question, though, is was he the person who paid back principal, or was some other entity responsible for paying it off, or did Daewoo come up with some other financial chicanery with Trump to try to claim that the full debt was satisfied so that Trump could avoid taxes on that $19.8 million? Now, this raises a number of other concerns, of course. Donald Trump has professed his undying love to North Korea. Donald Trump has always had a weird infatuation with North Korea. And one of the most logical explanations of it was, of course, that Donald Trump sees in himself Kim Jong-un, and he relates to a narcissistic, really despotic personality like a Kim Jong-un, a dangerous dictatorial personality. But also embedded in there now, as we see this, is a $19.8 million payment that was made, and it was characterized as a loan. But it looks to me, based on the reporting and the suspicious circumstances around it, to be an end run around making it taxable income. Donald Trump seems to have now owed and not disclosed this debt to a company with ties to Kim Jong-un and the North Korean regime. And so I think that's something the New York Attorney General is focused on. I think it is something the Manhattan District Attorney is focused on. In our previous reporting, we explained that the Manhattan DA has now, right before the Trump organization itself was convicted on these 17 felony counts, the Manhattan District Attorney brought in Matthew Colangelo, who was the number 3 at the Department of Justice, Merrick Garland's Department of Justice. And Matthew Colangelo, before that, had worked at the New York Attorney General's office and had prepared during the special proceeding all of the documents that led to New York Attorney General Letitia James ultimately filing the fraud lawsuit seeking at least $250 million in damages against Donald Trump individually, the Trump organization, and Trump's adult children. So I think one of the things that they will zero in on as part of the presentation of facts, both in the civil lawsuit by the New York Attorney General, as well as the criminal investigation that has now been reignited with the hiring of Matthew Colangelo and the guilty conviction of the Trump organization, are loans like this, $19.8 million loans, and how they were utilized as end run around income so they could really be income but treated as a loan. So we will keep you posted, but I wanted to give you that added context of not only here it being this foreign entanglement that Donald Trump had, the failure to disclose it on the disclosure statements that he did have to file in connection with his run for presidency, but also it looks like to me, and again, I need to know more, but my opinion based on how it's being framed and phrased is that it could be a tax avoidance scheme, and we know that Trump hasn't paid any income taxes at all, and it seems to be a way he reduced his income tax liability. We will keep you, and perhaps unlawfully, not perhaps, likely unlawfully, and we will see that as part of the Manhattan District Attorney's investigation. So when I hear from you a lot, he needs to be held accountable, he needs to be held accountable, I 100% agree. The wheels of justice have been moving in the right direction with the smartest people. Matthew Colangelo, Jack Smith, Merrick Garland before Jack Smith. Now Alvin Bragg has reignited it. Letitia James, Fani Willis. You have all these people in all of these different directions who have diligently pursued justice and haven't rushed it. And the diligence is what is ultimately going to pay off. And we will see that happening over the next weeks and months. I will be honored to report that with you each and every day. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button. Yeah, please hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers. Let's get there. Can we get there by the end of December? I don't know. It may be asking a lot, but please hit the subscribe button. Also, consider going to our Patreon account. Go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Become a patron. It's an exclusive membership club with the MeidasTouch Network. But most importantly, in addition to the content you'll get there, the exclusive content, you'll help grow this independent media platform because we're not funded by any outside investors at all. And you only hear this type of media reporting here. We're 100% accountable to you, and we always get asked by you, wherever you are in the world, what can I do? How can we help? That's one way you can help, if you can. No worries if you can't. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Until next time.
MeidasTouch is unapologetically pro-democracy. And look, we know you are too. So